Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 11 of the Exceptions podcast. I am Jess, and this is
Fenmore. I thought you were going to say my name because you usually do.
Fenmore, and we are talking about our favorites, or one of our favorite books, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is the third part in our Big Magic series, so check out the previous ones if you would like. And yeah, let's get into it. We're talking all about creativity.
Yes, I'm excited.
So to start us off, let's talk about something exceptional that's going on.
Oh my gosh, I wonder what it could be.
I wonder what it could be.
I've literally been refreshing. I never go on Twitter, but I've like refreshing Twitter like a madman, just like what's going to happen, who's going to win.
By the time this episode comes out, the president of the United States will be decided, as will
Maybe.
our fates. Yeah, that's true. Maybe not. That's why I have
Maybe
not been following. I was for a while watching the like live, updates, and I'm like, we're not going to know for a while, so I don't want to harm myself with the.
Well, Biden will probably win by tomorrow, which is Thursday. Like they will call it, but Trump will demand a recount. So I don't know if it's official or not. I don't know how American politics works. It's exceptionally convoluted.
Yes, very. I feel
but
on
entertaining.
edge. Yeah.
It's funny because I went to school and even the kids are who's winning.
Mm-hmm.
They're like refreshing their phones. They're like, oh wait, Biden's at 200 and something. It's amazing how I find it funny though. Americans are so shocked at how much Trump has grown. So people are expecting him to lose by a landslide, but he's not. It's really close.
I'm very concerned. I thought he was going to lose last time.
No, the funny thing is he's gained people, every demographic he's gained, except for white men. So way to go, white men.
I don't know how. Because they're the ones that need the pat on the back. Yeah, it feels like it feels very different than previous elections, whereas like way back there was a time where it was like, oh my God, is Obama going to get elected? How exciting. It was very like hopeful. And then the last time it was like, I was just sure. I was like, wow, we're going to have our first female president. Isn't this amazing? And how the fuck did this guy get this far? And now it's like, oh my God, can we just please like not continue regressing and at least just like pick someone who is, I don't know, not that bad.
You know, it seems absolutely ridiculous when you don't get into the meat of it, but I've gotten really into politics lately and just getting into understanding why Trump became president. And it's just a combination. It's not just racism or homophobia. I'm sure there's a lot of that as well, but there's a lot of economic misery that's happening, especially in the US. I'm sure there is here in Canada too, but people just wanted something different. The thing that the Democrats and Republicans have in common that they don't understand is that they all hate their politicians. they hate the establishment. They all lie, but they can't agree on that. So that's why Trump, in a way, was elected too. It's just like they wanted something to break the system. But here we are. I'm sure Biden will win. He'll pull it out like as by the sliver of his teeth.
I hope you're right.
Hopefully the temperature will calm down.
Was that literal or was that a metaphor?
What?
That the temperature will come down. Was
That's
that
a metaphor?
Like
what do you mean?
Okay.
What?
A dual. Well, it applies to global warming as well.
Oh.
Depending on, who cares more about that?
Maybe. But Biden's not even banning fracking, so I don't know what's happening. It's exceptional times we're living in. Exceptional times. Great time to have a podcast called The Exceptions.
Whoa. Who would have thought? Look at us go.
Killing it.
So let's check in about our goals a little bit. about our creative worlds at the moment. How are you doing with having being in full-time school, having to work, having musical collaborations, as well as a podcast, as well as other creative ventures? Tell us everything.
I find it challenging. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sure for those of our regular listeners, thank you if you're regular. Wow, amazing. But it's been hard trying to find all the energy to do everything well and always be on top of everything. And I like to do things well. So it's been quite challenging. I'm behind, but I refuse to complain. But maybe this is complaining. I don't know anymore. The world
We'll
is
get to
upside down.
complaining in this chapter. Don't you worry.
I love it. But I don't want to complain. I just, it's just challenging and I'm trying to find ways to do it right. And also, it's been emotionally charged week for various reasons. So, trying to navigate that.
Yeah.
My
It's hard.
my weakness is my emotional baggage sometimes. So, I have to deal with that.
Yeah. We talked about that in a previous episode too. Mood and productivity and that relationship. It's very challenging because I think that it's hard to create when you're not in a good space. It's hard to even have the motivation to want to do anything productive.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
I had mocha. I had a mocha today from
I saw that.
Honolulu Cafe,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like a drug. The mocha made me love everything and everyone. Like literally, this guy came up to me. He was in this cafe, and all he asked was, "Can you watch my stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah, I could watch your stuff for you, my friend." I felt so
I feel an
in
emotional
tune.
connection to you now, sir.
And, it was really weird, and I don't know. Does caffeine hit you harder when you're just not emotionally stable or something? Because that was a weird experience. I was
Yeah, I
nearly on
don't
the verge
know.
of tears. I'm like, "Are you ridiculous right now?" How about you? How are your goals going?
They're going pretty good. I also had written down about complaining, which I also feel like I was doing this week, just complaining about the process. And as we'll get into, it's kind of like, it's just funny because it's like no one's forcing us to do these goals. We want these, we want to make these things a reality. We are, we enjoy the creative process. So when we're complaining about it, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
I gave into a lot of distractions this week, and I think like the frustration, the complaining, the non-consistency is kind of is material for me. Like I'm writing about bridging that gap between inaction and action when it comes to creativity or anything. And part of that is writing about the process of what that's actually like. So I can just look at it all as like material for myself. And I am the case study for my own book in this situation, really. So I wanted to bring up too. I watched a video, an interview with Seth Godin and on Marie TV, Marie Forleo.
Is that the bald guy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've been seeing him on YouTube lately.
Yeah. The bald white dude with glasses. And I think
Glasses.
he's got like some cool yellow glasses or something. He's like 60, I think, and he's written a blog post every day for 20 years.
Oh, I was
And
thinking
he's
of
written
someone
some
else. Never
books.
mind.
Oh, okay.
But
He's
anyways,
written
keep
some
going.
books. And anyways, yeah, his newest book looks good. I want to read it. I think it's called The Practice or something. And it's like about creative consistency. But yeah, he just said, I think he started, and it wasn't like the first day he blogged. He's like, I'm gonna write every day for the rest of my life. But he got to a point where he's like, yeah, I am going to remove, what did he call it? I think like the cognitive strain or the mental strain of negotiating with myself, and I'm just going to do it every day. And he's like, mathematically speaking, half or more of my blog posts are bad or less than average. Like that's just how it goes. and they're all
Yeah.
pretty short. Like it's just he just has this practice of like, hey, the point is that it's I'm not negotiating with myself about doing it. And you could say this about any habits, about daily exercise, about drinking enough water, whatever. Don't wake up in the morning and go, well, maybe today instead of going for a walk, I'll just scroll on my phone. You're like negotiating with yourself. So you're like, well, I'll do it extra tomorrow. And I do that a lot too. So I liked that mindset where he's like, remove that negotiation, take that mental strain away, and just make that decision.
I learned that a long time ago that
Definitely
Nike's
not new information. Yeah.
yeah, but you know what? Sometimes you need someone else to tell you something that you've already heard in a different way until you finally get it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I see it all the time with kids. I tell them one thing, they don't get it. Some other teacher tells them, they're like, "Oh," I was like, "I told you that." They're like, "Oh, I didn't get it," or the other way around. It's the same with
Mm-hmm.
adults. Like sometimes you just need to hear it from someone else.
Or you have to
Um,
learn it the hard way or learn
learn
it on
it.
your own.
Yeah. I mean, Nike's been telling everyone this for years. Just
Yes.
do it. If you try negotiating with your brain, you will lose because your brain is the best at trying to convince you not to do hard things. It doesn't want to do hard things. And you will lose that. You will lose that battle with your brain every time, like 90% of the time. So don't even
Yeah.
think about it. Thinking is a
Yeah.
bad idea. Learn from the US. Don't
Totally.
think. Just just to go. It also reminds me of one of the concepts in the part of Big Magic that we're doing about
Mm-hmm.
you no one can come to save you. I'm jumping way
Mm-hmm.
ahead, but
Yeah. How dare you? I had this all ordered out.
well,
No,
you go ahead
it's
then.
true.
That's fine.
Okay, so let's start with permission. She very early on in this section talks about you don't need anybody's permission to live a creative life. And I think we often look for that because it's a maybe potentially quote unquote out of the norm thing to go for creative goals. It's not really, but maybe success in that area seems to be, or it's something that's very self motivating, self starting. Like, why do you think it is that in this particular situation we look for permission? Is it because it's not like wildly accepted as like a professional path to take? What do you think?
The way I thought about it was, I guess sometimes you ask people if you're good enough to do it. You
Right.
know, I,
Totally.
can I do
Do I have
this?
talent?
I think that's a valid question sometimes if you're really like putting your whole, for example, life finances into a project. If you're
Mm-hmm.
aware enough to ask other people, is this, will this work out?
Mm-hmm.
Um, or take cues from other people. I think that's not entirely stupid thing to do, right? So when I think about permission, it's not necessarily like asking for a slip from someone like you should do this, you should go. It's more about trying to figure out if what you're doing actually is resonating with people. But at the same time, that's not an excuse not to live a creative life. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's more a caveat of can you make a career out of it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think we just make a bigger deal of it than it needs to be. She says, she says, keep in mind that for most of history, people just made things and they didn't make such a freaking big deal out of it. And she
Yeah.
says, too, the earliest example of recognizable human art is 40,000 years old. Like, art doesn't have to be this, like, seemingly, wow, this is amazing. It's so original. It's so progressive. Like, it's all probably been done before.
Yeah, she
It
says
just
it.
is what it is.
I mean, like we're still celebrating hand paintings on caves. My 5-year-old cousin can do hand paintings on caves. You know what I mean? So in a way, I love what she says. Just do it. Just do the creative thing. Like, what are you so worried about? Just go ahead and do it. She also says in the book though, like, be smart about it. Don't like waste your whole life career, or not your life career, waste your whole finances on one project that you're probably not sure will work out. Be
And
smart
rather
about it.
than, yeah, rather than looking at creativity as like this, you're stepping outside of the traditional boxes that have been put there for you in society. Realize that we are all inherently creative. And I want to quote her again here. She says, "Are you considering becoming a creative person? Too late, you already are one. To even call somebody, quote unquote, a creative person is almost laughably redundant. Creativity is the hallmark of our species." It just is.
And again, you can find creativity in so many different ways. It's not always about art or music. It's just finding, as you talked about last time, finding a space of beauty and transcendence.
Yeah, and we're naturally drawn to it. Like in the smallest of ways that you wouldn't notice. Like think about when you're in a meeting or a training. Well, for me anyway, when I'm in a training, I'll start, drawing and doodling on a page and little things like that. Like it's there. The mind is curious. The mind wants to be making something.
Yeah. In your cooking, in your fighting. I meant by jiu-jitsu. Like if you're into martial arts, there's
And you're
creativity in
fighting,
that.
beating up other kids at school.
In your conversation with your partner, how can you manipulate them even more? That's creativity. Like lean into
Yes.
it.
And how you live your life
We promote
is
toxic behavior on here. I'm kidding. We don't.
how you live your life is creative, which we already talked about kind of with the first chapter. But a part of living your life, which you may not think is creative living. Well, I don't know. It seems pretty obviously creative living to me, but maybe I think people associate creativity with artisticness, which I see as being synonymous a lot. She talks about self decoration, and she has an example of a friend of hers who liked to get tattoos, a new tattoo pretty often. And yeah, and I wrote down a quote, but can I find it now? Yes, I can. Okay. So her quote says, um, so yeah, this her friend Eileen got a lot of tattoos, and Elizabeth was like, how can you, how like tell me about this? What's the deal? And how can you be adding such permanent things to yourself? And she said that they're not permanent, um, because her body is just temporary, just kind of like this life is temporary, and we can enjoy it how we want to. She said, because, like Eileen, her friend, I also want to live the most vividly decorated temporary life that I can. I don't just mean physically, I mean emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. I don't want to be afraid of bright colors or new sounds or big love or risky decisions or strange experiences or weird endeavors or sudden changes or even failure. I love that.
Yeah. I think Elizabeth's synonym for creativity is just living boldly
Yeah.
and living how you want to live. If I know one of the scariest things growing up for me was thinking that my life might end up being waking up, driving to work, sitting at a desk, driving back to work, watching TV, going to bed. You know that SpongeBob montage. I don't know if anyone else knows what I'm talking about, but there's a SpongeBob montage that has that exact sequence, and it is so it's so scary to think that your life could be that way. I saw this meme the other day about how as kids we all liked SpongeBob, but as adults we all get Squidward, and how Squidward is just so. Do you know what SpongeBob is?
A sponge? A sea
SpongeBob,
sponge?
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Like the show? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I do. I thought you meant like, do I know what his character is supposed to be? I'm
No, no,
like,
no.
a
Like, do you know
sponge?
what's? Do you know this?
Yeah, I know the
No.
show.
Okay. Okay. I felt like I was okay, but just
Yeah,
how
I do.
Squidward is depressed and
Yeah.
the funny thing is, Squidward is trying to pursue his artistic life. Like he thinks he's this
Yeah, isn't
artiste
he a
that,
musician or something?
yeah, like clarinet, I believe, or oboe, and
Yeah.
no one's appreciating him, and and he's depressed about it, and he's working a job that he doesn't like.
I have that fear too. And sometimes I get mixed up with my creative ventures because I want to make things and I want that to be a big part of my life. And it would be very awesome if I could combine that with how I make money. because I have such an attachment to this dream life of one day working for myself and having more control over all of that.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that's just that day in, day out, same thing that's not contributing to something besides a pension seems awful, but it's also how you look at it too. You could very much enjoy a stable, easy, stress-free-ish job and then come home and do your hobbies and your creative stuff after work. There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that either.
The point is, if you're complaining about your life, well, why are you complaining? Or if you're not happy with life, why are you not happy with your life? And
Mm-hmm.
a large part of that maybe is because you're just not expressing your creativity or finding your creativity, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Since you're saying that, we can jump ahead to complaining and maybe come back after. But she talks about complaining. I don't know
I
if I
love
already
this
said this,
part.
but
I love
it's
this part.
yeah, it's good. She's like the way that, when you'd go to like an art school or something and you hear kids complaining about, or like you just said with Squidward, like, oh, no one is discovering me and whatever. Like
Right. And he's
you would
miserable.
think, yeah,
He
you
makes
would
himself
think
miserable.
that it was a life sentence. You would think someone on certain days, if you talk to me, you would be like, wow, poor Jess. She's been sentenced to a life of having this dream of writing a book. Like, poor her. But really, it's a choice to live this creative dream and see it to fruition. And it's a very exciting choice. Like, again, the underlying message here is just take it less seriously, just try to have more fun with it, because I think
Yeah. Have more
we have
fun.
nothing to complain about in this arena.
Uh, and going back to the complaining thing, though, I want to preface it with a story she tells about this guy called Werner Herzog. Is he a filmmaker? Yeah, he's a filmmaker of
He
sorts.
is.
And this guy, I don't know, is a film student of some sort.
Yeah, a friend of hers, I think, who wanted to be a director.
A friend of hers wanted to be a director, and he was losing all hope, and he was complaining because it seemed that no one appreciated his work. Like he was just not getting the recognition he deserved, and so he wrote a letter where he was talking to Werner Herzog about this. And I loved Werner's. Am I saying this guy's name right? I don't
Yeah,
think I
he's the
am.
guy that like he's made some like very out there like fiction films, but he's made also I think he was the one that directed that film about the guy that went and lived with the bears and then the bears like ate him. It was a documentary. I
Not
think he
in
directed that.
It's not in my Netflix list, so I'm not sure about that one. But anyways, so this Elizabeth's independent filmmaker friend writes to Werner Herzog. I'm gonna call him Herzog. And Herzog replies back to him and he says, "Quit your complaining. It's not the world's fault that you wanted to be an artist. It's not the world's job to enjoy the films you make. And it's certainly not the world's obligation to pay for your dreams. Nobody wants to hear it. Steal a camera if you must, but stop whining and get back to work." And that hit hard for me. I feel like I just need to hear that sometimes. And I feel everyone who's an artist or is a creative needs to hear that. Like, stop your complaining. Like, nobody wants to hear it. It's so
Yeah.
off-putting when you hear even like somewhat successful artists complaining on Twitter, like, no one's listening to my things. Like, I'm pulling out the best things and no one cares about it. It just turns people off. It's like, well,
Yeah.
maybe no one wants to listen to your things. Like, calm down. Like, we're not,
Yeah.
no one's obligated to read your stuff or listen to your stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
here for that. So yeah, stop
Yeah.
complaining. She
She
says it's
gives us
annoying. Go ahead.
yeah, she gives us 4 reasons not to complain. The first one, it's annoying. Every artist complains and it's a dead and boring topic, like you just said. Nobody wants to hear it. Second, of course it's difficult to create things. If it wasn't difficult, everyone would be doing it and it wouldn't be special or interesting. Brilliant, clear, easy. Third, no one ever really listens to anyone else complaining because we're all too focused on our own shit anyway.
Unless you're a teacher and then you have to listen and try to,
Or a
anyways,
therapist. Yeah.
or a therapist.
But you probably deep down still don't really care.
Don't
No, I'm
care. Yeah.
kidding.
Nope. 'Nope. 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 'No
I like is that you're scaring away inspiration. And she kind of touches on how she's like, when she gets into that mode of complaining about how it's difficult or it's tiring or whatever to be creative, that her inspiration is like, okay, sorry, buddy, didn't realize my presence was such a drag. I'll take my business elsewhere.
No,
It
it's so
just
true.
makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
Because
Thinking of how,
you get in that negative headspace and then you start spiraling. I mean, that's the psychological effect of negative headspace. You just spiral. And it's not the same as being actually sad or actually feeling anger. Complaining in itself is a very weird emotion. It's not I don't think it's sadness, which can create great music sometimes, or anger, which can create great music. It's such an annoying frequency that everyone and the entire universe and the universe's grandma hates.
yes, it's true. And that leads me into thinking about entitlement. Because on one hand, you could think about complaining as entitlement. You know, who are you to complain about this? But then she talks about entitlement in a different way. She's, you know, the basic definition of entitlement that we all know is a pretty negative and not great thing. But when she
Yeah.
talks about creative entitlement, she's talking about defining yourself and declaring your intent. So having the entitlement to say, yeah, I am insert role here or whatever it is. Have the entitlement to say, yeah, I'm a writer because I write. Yeah, I'm a figure skater because I figure skate, like that woman from the first chapter. Sure, she's not externally validated for it, but that's not the point.
Yeah, I think the point is just to let the universe know that you're here. And as she says, hell, let you know you're there, you know, that you are on this earth and that you are allowed to create. You're allowed to live how you wish to live.
Yeah, you are allowed to be in this creative space just because you exist and you've decided to. That's it. Again, goes back to the permission thing. You don't need a permission slip. You don't need anyone to tell you you can. You have the ability to do it. Which leads me into schooling.
Oh, this is an interesting topic.
Very. Thoughts?
So Elizabeth's stance on school is that for the most part, art students do not need it. And I actually agree with this because it depends on your specialty. But she gives so many examples of the greatest artists we know, and they never went to fine art school. They never had to spend thousands of dollars trying to get an education from a university. Like she talks about the majority of the Nobel Prize winners for literature never went to university for literature.
Some didn't
Is
even go finish high school,
Some
apparently.
even didn't finish high school. And I think that's a really important point to make. I think in our society, there's just way too much emphasis on people to go get a college education, even if they're not sure what they want to do, or they're in a field where can they just learn on YouTube.
You can literally learn probably anything on YouTube. A couple examples.
Yes.
I have learned most recently dancing. I can do that from YouTube videos. Yoga, how to unclog my bathroom sink. Freaking like just anything.
Anything.
Writing,
It's all
music.
online, people.
Yeah.
But I will also say that sometimes you do need a mentor. And some great people have mentors, like Aristotle had a mentor, and um, great musicians had mentors as well. For specifically, like in piano, I wouldn't be as good as I am without a teacher, without a piano teacher. And I think there are certain areas where getting good mentorship is important, but that does not mean spending thousands of dollars on in university, right? And she says like most people spend that money so that they can say like, see, I'm a writer because I spent this much
Validation.
money. Yeah, validation. But the time you spent is validation enough. Like if you just do it.
Yeah. We can validate ourselves. We don't need this like external thing to legitimize us. But again, if you are in school for this stuff, it's fine. She touches on that too. Like it is what it is. And you will probably meet groups of people. You will probably get to network a little
Yeah.
more. You'll learn some things, but it's not necessary. And especially not necessary if you're going to go into massive debt for it. But yeah, she's just talking about like, you don't necessarily need the theory and the schooling behind it. You just need to share your experience. And I like how she says, like, writers are particularly lucky. Like, we, like, to write a book costs me nothing. Maybe, you know, if I'm having issues ever one day with publishing, I might need to hire an agent, for example. But for the most part, me learning about writing, me connecting with other writers, me writing costs me nothing. And with that, she's kind of just saying, you know, if you don't go to school to learn the theory or whatever, just share what you have. Older people will want to know what it's like to be youthful. Younger people will want to know the wisdom of being old. Like, age isn't the only factor here that provides you with something that other people will want to experience. And that touches on originality. Like, maybe we think that school is going to help us to find our voice or to
Yeah.
get one up on other creators in our field, but I think she kind of breaks that down too and just says probably your idea has been done, yes, period, but it has not been done by you, which is very interesting and
It's
very
yeah.
true.
It is very true. I was writing a song the other day actually. I was writing a song about how there's certain artists who I guess look down on artists who sing only about love and it's
Mm-hmm.
not original. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, well, the sky's been blue for a million years and it's still beautiful. So people can write love songs for as much as they want to because it's how they experience life for the first time or they experience love for the first time and it's still beautiful. And so no matter what your idea is, unless you're completely plagiarizing,
Yeah.
if you're experiencing it, it's your genuine experience, that's still valid because the sky's been blue for a million years and the grass has been green for a million years. And so is your emotional experience just as valid as those things.
Yeah. And
Don't
another
steal
quote.
my song idea, by the way. If anyone's listening, that's my song idea.
I'm
Thank you.
excited to hear
Copyright. I'm kidding.
it. Yeah, that you can't steal, but you can steal anything else.
Anything else?
Okay, quotes. So, what if we repeat the same themes? So, what if we repeat the same themes? So, what if we circle around the same ideas again and again, generation after generation? So, what if every new generation feels the same urges and asks the same questions that humans have been feeling and asking for years? We're all related after all, so there's going to be some repetition of creative instinct. Everything reminds us of something, but once you put your own expression and passion behind an idea, that idea becomes yours. And I noticed this in the field of self development too. Like, I'll discover someone like Gala Darling, who I've mentioned before, and she'll talk about, you know, your like protecting your energy or however you want to describe it around other negative people and keeping your own vibe high or whatever. And then I'm chatting with my friend who's reading a book for work by Dale Carnegie, who I don't know when this book was published, but like I think it's like in the 50s or 60s, and he's bringing up like the same ideas. And you go back farther to like more like philosophical books and stuff, and it's the same thing. And we're like, oh, this is not a new idea. This has always been a thing. And we think that, you know, it's going to be this new crazy thing, but it's not like they were like we look back, it's like, what did we think these were just like primitive beings that had
Yeah.
no idea about how to self develop or anything? Like, it's just not the case.
Which, in a way, I guess is super depressing. We have not evolved that much at all. We're still trying to learn the basic things about
That is true. In
life.
some cases, yeah, it's like, man, this information's been around for years, how to freaking be in control of your mood, for example, or whatever. It's just, but it's another thing too, of like what you said, it depends who you hear it from and what the modality is. And at what time in your life you're at to be able to actually have that information impact you.
Yeah. And also, I guess there's an argument to be made that society has progressed. That's the progressive theory, because the conversations we have in the mainstream are probably maybe more advanced than they were a few hundred years ago in a way. But again, it might all be circles. Let me not get into philosophy right now because my brain cannot do that. But it's interesting to
Basically,
think.
don't discredit yourself because you think something's been done before.
Yes, thank you.
I am going to learn something more so from someone who shares XYZ values and beliefs with me, and I'm going to want to hear it from them. And maybe I like the way they look or the way they talk or the background in their video or whatever it is that's going to that's going to sit with me, and someone else is going to want to hear it from someone who doesn't swear, and someone's going to want to hear it from someone who has the same religious belief as them, and someone's going to hear it from someone who's very scientific about it. Someone wants to
Yeah,
hear it from someone who has no background and has just had this message sent to them from the universe, whatever it is. So your voice does have value for whichever group of people.
it does. It reminds me of
Really.
like me being on TikTok. The Sometimes I come across inspirational quotes or videos, and it's something that I've seen like 3 years ago. But then I look at the comments and kids are just finding this concept out. And they're like, oh, that hit me hard. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, never thought of it that way. And that's really nice. And you could like crap on those kids for discovering things that you knew like 5 years ago. But why would you do that? Like, or you could like crap on the creator who's taking this quote from somewhere else and putting it on TikTok and making it theirs. And like, oh, that's not a original thought, but it's still reaching people and it's still something positive in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
let people just
Yeah.
find wisdom on their own in their own way.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, it when it comes down to creativity, the way she wraps it up in this part is perfect. It's that she says, please try to relax. It's not a big deal. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
big deal. For example, music, she says, is just a decoration for imagination.
Yeah.
um,
Jewelry for the inside of your mind.
right. Like, it's not a big deal. But at the same time, what does she say? The central paradox.
She's basically saying that art is absolutely meaningless and deeply meaningful.
It is. In the end, it matters, as she says. It really matters when you're doing it. Pretend that it's the most important thing in your life. And then when you're done, realize that it really is not important at all. It matters and it doesn't matter. And we have to hold
Mm-hmm.
that two things in our brains at all times.
Let's end with this quote that she has about rejection. So she wrote a lot. Or sorry, she submitted a lot of her short stories and
Yeah, I
she got
love this
rejected a
story.
lot.
Such a good story.
And she basically said, I disliked the rejection letters. Who wouldn't? But I took the long view. My intention was to spend my entire life in communion with writing, period. So she would save those rejection letters. She would put them aside. And every time she got one, she'd be like, oh, you think this is going to stop me? There's people that aren't even born yet who are going to reject me in the future. You just wait.
Tenacity. That's what
Yeah,
we call tenacity and perseverance
exactly.
without complaining. Because gratitude, always gratitude. We want to thank everyone for coming. We want to thank our sponsor for the week, which is my caffeine high, which I'm still
Fenmore's mocha.
coming off of. It was a nuclear bomb in my head because I am 12 apparently and cannot handle my caffeine. I tell you, I was on the verge of crying in a cafe. My head was like in my hands. I was like, anyways, we love you all so very much for listening to our voices or watching our faces.
And
And
Fenmore's beautiful lilac shirts.
it's not lilac, it's purple.
Lavender.
It's
If you can't
oh,
see him, it's a
lavender.
lovely shirt.
Oh, thank you.
One of my fave colors.
Is it? I
Mm-hmm.
considered lavender to be Generation Z. It's Gen Z color.
Nice. It is the color that Fenmore chose for our podcast icon colors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. So we'll see you next week. And go do exceptional things like we will be as well. Have fun out there.